Let me ask you about net interest
Good morning,
income
Anna.
then, because we see headlines here that suggest it came in high. Yeah, it's a pleasure. Higher than anticipated then, net interest income. Is that sustainable?
Well, let me say first, thank you for having me on the show. And we've today delivered a strong result in very uncertain times. And one of the drivers of that is the net interest income. And the reason for that is that we've seen both an inflow of deposit and also during the quarter seen increased volumes that we've lent out.
And do you see that as sustainable then, Jens? I imagine the deposits is all about people saving, so that may be not something that's replicated into the future. I guess it depends on the path of the virus.
Well, I'm not going to make any forecast for the future and our income. I just want to say that people put faith in our bank and put their money in it, and I think they will continue to do that.
What about the impairment story, Jens? This is something that's attracted a lot of attention. How do you see impairments developing? What will the profile of those impairments look like?
Well, if you look at impairment, we've set off 2.2 billion in impairments for credit for future credit losses in the first quarter. This quarter, we've set aside 1.2 billion. But if you look on the realized credit losses, we're talking about, I think it was 130 million Swedish kronor during the first quarter and 107 million during this quarter. So we set off a lot of money due to that we see a worsening of the macroeconomic development.
You do see a worsening then. Could you tell me a little bit about how you expect the regions in which you operate to develop in terms of the underlying economics?
Well, we see a worsening compared to what we saw last quarter. We follow very much what the IMF came forward with a few weeks ago, and we see sort of a deeper downturn. But we're also right now seeing an uptick in the economy.
Let me ask you about the trading business then. A lot of banks with big trading businesses, of course, have reported some strength in trading revenues in the second quarter. Is that something that you've experienced as well at Swedbank?
Yes, we have seen some gains in the trading as well, but I think the main reason was that we saw quite a negative impact on that in the first quarter, and that meant that our net gains and losses have gone up, because if you look on sort of the amount of bonds we sit with, both on sort of on company bonds and on credit derivatives, the value of this, they have gone up during the quarter.
Are you concerned about commercial real estate, Jens? Do you see in any of the markets in which you operate concerns in that market?
Well, if you look on sort of Swedbank, we are a bank that is very dependent on what happens on the real estate market. But mainly, we are a bank that has lent out money to ordinary people who have bought houses. So our exposure to the commercial real estate market is not as big as many things. But we've seen also a stabilizing and a trend. And if you look on house prices right now, house prices are actually slowly going up.
Can I ask you about something a little different away from COVID and the underlying economics here? An update on the money laundering probe that is being conducted in the US. What can you tell us there?
Well, I would say like this. When I came in, I had a strong focus on sort of cleaning up the mess when it came to sort of our money laundering issues. And I focused very much on closing the history books. And last quarter, we came out with the Clifford Chance report, and we also had the different authorities in Sweden and Estonia closing on us. So I would say we're now at the beginning of the end. We still have US authorities looking at us, and we are answering their questions, and then we will see how long time it takes before that resolves.
Yeah, do you have any insight? Are we talking months or years that this risk hangs over the business?
No, I don't have any insight. It's up to the US authorities to decide how long this process will take. For me, it's very simple. And when they ask questions, I'm going to be polite and we answer as quick as we can and give as much fact as we possibly can. And then it's up to them to decide the pace.
Jens, in terms of the pandemic, many banks dealing with this in terms of working practices and also strategy, perhaps. Do you see this as having lasting impact on the strategy of Swedbank, or do you return to business as it was before?
That's a good question we're pondering quite a lot on right now. I would say one thing that we can see is reduced travel within the bank, because we've now discovered, as you, that you can work like this, we meet digitally, and that will be one effect. We also see sort of this, the customer wants to meet us digitally, so we will continue our travel to be a digital bank with physical presence.